Solutions. This is ABC7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC7. We're asking experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Today, UC Berkeley is welcoming its freshman class to campus. And this year, there are revised COVID protocols. The Assistant Vice Chancellor for University Health Services will be here to tell us about their new plan for keeping students safe. Also, you may have heard about the recent exodus from San Francisco, but even as some businesses and families leave, Gen Z is flocking to the city. Our media partner, the San Francisco Standard, will be here with a closer look at why Gen Zers love the city by the Bay. But first, today's searing triple-digit heat in the Bay Area poses a health danger, especially to the very young, the very old, unhoused people, and people with health issues. Unfortunately, heat waves may become more commonplace in the U.S. in the next 30 years. That's according to a brand new study that shows an emerging extreme heat belt. Joining us now to talk about the findings, the Chief Research Officer of the Climate Research Group First Street Foundation, Dr. Jeremy Porter. Dr. Porter, thanks for your time today.
No, thanks for having me on.
You've been doing this study for a while. This is the 6th year, I believe, and the finding this year is alarming. What is the bottom line?
Yeah, we've done a couple of these reports, as you point out, and we focused on flood. We've focused on wildfire. This assessment has really been focused on heat, and in particular, we're focused on extreme heat events, as opposed to the way that we communicate a lot of climate science, which tends to focus on long-term projections around 2100. Or on temperature changes in the near term, a 2-degree, 3-degree increase. We know that people don't really respond to those very well. So what we've done is actually build out a model focused on extreme heat events in the short term.
Because people can relate to that 30 years. It's, you know, in the lifetime that you might have. So let's talk about that. I want to throw up a map here, okay? First, tell me, when you say extreme heat, dangerous heat, is there a temperature that we're talking about?
Yeah, there are. We're primarily focused on the rubric that the National Weather Service put out, which has different bins for 80-degree heat index, 90-degree heat index, 103-degree heat index, and 125-degree heat index. When we talk about extreme heat, we're specifically talking about the 125-degree heat index.
Okay, and that might factor in humidity, so the actual temperatures could be like 100 or something. But okay, so let's put that map up because I want to dive in deeply now. We're looking at a map of, you know, 2 U.S. maps. Tell us what we're seeing here. I see one has a little bit of red, the other with a whole lot of red. What does this mean?
Yeah. Your point is well taken. You know, 95-degree air temperature plus 80% humidity, it'll get us to 125-degree heat index. So it's not that hard really to fathom. But if you look at this map, the map on the left, the little bit of red shows counties today that have at least one area within the county that could reach 125-degree heat index for one day. The county on the right is in 30 years what that same risk looks like. We're actually growing from about 8 million people at risk today to about 107 million people at risk in those maroon counties into the future.
Wait, did you say from 8 million people today to over 100 million in terms of who would be living in those counties, those areas that have the extreme heat conditions?
Yeah, and that's holding population constant to today's projection. But if you just count the people that live in those counties today, you're going from about 8 million today to about 107 million in 30 years. So it's 13 times fold. Yeah.
There's this other map that I also want to show that projects areas that will have days with over 100 degrees heat index. And we see lighter and darker shades of red. So explain what this other map means.
Yeah. So this map is actually the number of days above 100 moving into the future. The 100-degree threshold is loosely aligned with the National Weather Service's 103-degree heat index, which is called a dangerous day.
Okay.
So you can see here that the Midwest, the Atlantic coast, the Southeast, and part of moving across the very southern tier of the West and up through the Central Valley of California are all places that are going to see big increases in 100-degree heat index days or dangerous days.
All right, keeping this up here, is this pretty much how the extreme heat belt area is reflected in the areas that are red and orange?
It is, for the most part. The one caveat is that once you get east of Louisiana and you get into Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, you're going to see less of a likelihood of hitting that 125-degree heat index because there is a protection effect from the water and being close to the water. So there's actually a physical limit to how hot it can get, but they are going to see more 100-degree days.
Okay. And of course, all this is due to climate change?
Yeah, all of it's due to the warming temperatures, sea surface temperatures, air temperatures. We've seen, if you just go back in the historic record, we're already about 2 degrees warmer, according to a NOAA report, than we were mid-century last century. And forecasted out using those same global climate models, we're likely to have about another 3-degree Fahrenheit increase over the next 30 years.
All right, before we get into solutions and what we can realistically do, I just want to dive back into the maps again, because here in the Bay Area, we've always thought of ourselves as being fairly protected. We're right along the ocean there. We've got the water, we've got the fog, but under the scenarios that you guys are projecting, are we also more likely to suffer extreme temperatures, extreme heat more often?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a protection effect of being close to the water, and especially on the West Coast, because the weather patterns tend to move from west to east. So you can see that really light pink, sort of narrow strip of land on the California coast. There's not a whole lot of exposure to 100-degree heat index days there. If you move just a little further inland and you remove that protection effect from the water, then you are starting to see increases in dangerous days, Sacramento area, the Central Valley area.
All right, so what is the impact of that kind of heat on a more consistent basis on people and on the way we live?
Yeah, a lot of our analysis is focused on extreme events, but if you move beyond just the occurrence of the extreme events themselves, then you really focus on sort of the long-term issues, and the focus on being exposed to not necessarily 100-degree days, but maybe 80 degrees at night and then 90 degrees on consecutive days. All of a sudden, you start to have problems with dehydration, heat cramps, fatigue. Heat stroke becomes much more likely. And on the far end, if there is extreme heat events in areas that aren't ready for it, you can actually see death. There was a heat wave in Portland last year. We saw over 100 people die after being exposed to the heat.
So how can we prepare for, I don't want to say this inevitability. I mean, perhaps there are things that we can do to slow the march towards that kind of a future, but what can we do to prepare?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, we project out only 30 years. After you get beyond that 30 years, the climate models, there's a lot more disagreement in them, a lot of different trends. If you only go out 30 years, there's a pretty good agreement in those climate models. We're basically locked in for the next 30 years as to where we're going to be. What we really need to do to prepare is make sure that people have information around exposure to extreme heat events, as opposed to projections around temperatures and 2100. If we focus just on those events, then we can do things like make sure people are able to protect themselves, either in the case of having air conditioning, making sure that they're staying inside on those days, or even communities can do things like set up emergency response plans and set up cooling centers and just prepare for the really what you to your point, the inevitable extreme heat exposure that we're going to see in the future.
Look, on a macro level, you know, in terms of what we can do, I'm sure you've closely followed the Inflation Reduction Act, which President Biden actually signed today. There are climate provisions in there, mainly incentives for companies to decarbonize. Do you think that will make a dent?
It will, but probably not in the short term. In the short term, again, we're pretty locked in for the next 20, 25, 30 years. If we can actually implement a lot of these integrations into cleaner energy and electric vehicle usage and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, then there is potentially the opportunity to mitigate some of these extreme heat exposures moving far into the future beyond 30 years.
All right, Dr. Jeremy Porter with the First Street Foundation, thank you so much for coming on and sharing the results of your study.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up next, UC Berkeley looks to tackle another school year with COVID. We'll look into their new protocols as freshmen move in today. Stay with us. Getting Answers, we'll be right back.
In commercial break. Seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Today is freshman check-in day for UC Berkeley. As the university welcomes students back for a third school year under COVID, it has revised its protocol to meet changing conditions. Joining us today to talk about how the university plans to keep students healthy and minimize transmission this year is UC Berkeley's Assistant Vice Chancellor for University Health Services, Dr. Guy Nicolette. Dr. Nicolette, thanks for coming on the show. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so freshmen started moving in today, right? We have some video, courtesy of actually my own niece, a new Cal Bear. So as we showed this video, tell us how ready, how secure you feel this fall compared to last fall when students came back for the new year.
Well, go Bears. And I guess first, I want to say, we should appreciate those folks that are really on the front lines of this, helping students move in. Certainly our team here is amazing. They're experienced, unfortunately, I guess, in helping our students navigate the pandemic and support their academic pursuits while we're all dealing with COVID. Yeah, I would say, well, to be fully frank, we've had a lot of twists and turns here. And so I hate to, be too comfortable thinking that we've got it all figured out. That said, this is our third move-in for COVID. We've got, it frankly starts before the students arrive to campus. So we've been messaging parents and students all along, and particularly as it pertains to COVID, the messages have suggested that folks test before they come. If you're positive before you come, you should delay your travel. Once you get here, each bed has, for those students that are living on campus with us, each bed has a rapid antigen test. We've got PCR.
In fact, we have a picture of that right there. Also courtesy of my niece, right? They find that as they walk into their rooms.
Your niece is doing some reporting work on day one. So rapid antigen test there, PCR test in vending machines at kind of strategic locations around campus. And I really think that we've got the move-in aspects covered, meaning I think our protocol is sound, and I think we're ready for a number of positives.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of the pandemic right now.
This is really interesting, the vending machine. So that's going to be available all year and for free, is that right?
Yes, the student uses their Cal ID card, and there's a saliva-based PCR test available to them free.
And the rapid test that the kids got upon arrival, is that mandatory that they submit it for, or is it just recommended that they use it?
Yeah, so again, we've been through this a couple of times. So the housing and res life staff are helping helping the student navigate this new thing. And within an hour or two, they fill out an attestation. If they're positive, they give us a call, put on a mask, a high quality mask, give us a call, and we lead them through the process.
I see. And that process, does it still include isolation for 5 days? Are you still maintaining isolation housing? How does that work this year, and is it different from last year?
Yes, it is different than last year. I'll say this. Of course, we're following all state and City of Berkeley public health rules. They've been our great partner through this, again, through all the twists and turns of this. So yes, isolation is still, we still follow the isolation guidelines. This year is different in that students would be isolating in place, meaning they would isolate in their dorm room instead of going to a separate dorm facility. What we're doing this year is that those roommates that are at high risk for severe disease, we're offering them to go off-site. So meaning taking the unexposed or the healthy student and offering them an off-site kind of temporary housing.
But if your roommate tests positive and you don't think you're at particularly high risk for health factors, then you stay in that same dorm room?
That's right.
So do you advise them to wear N95s the whole time? And how would you sleep if that were the case?
Yeah, well, we don't advise anybody sleep in an N95. That's not good practice. So I'll just kind of point out or keep in mind that this is what we do for influenza. This is what we do for other viral respiratory illnesses, is that students isolate in place. So really, we're trying to give folks that are at higher risk the option to leave and, maintain the academic, capabilities for those students that are isolating.
I see. So then what about the masking policy now? Most campuses, whether it's K through 12 or colleges, do not have a mandate anymore. What is it this year?
That's the same we're following the city of Berkeley on that one. There is no mandate for indoor masking at the city of Berkeley. However,
so that's also different from last school year, right? As you began last fall?
Right, and we're continuing to strongly recommend, and we have a supply of N95s that are available at several locations, again, free of charge for students that want a mask that just forgot their mask or need another one.
I see. Okay. Are visitors allowed in dorms or campus buildings now? Are there any restrictions?
Yes, visitors are allowed. For move-in, it's a little bit different, as your niece probably experienced, that we're limiting the amount of people just because of the challenge with moving in that many students over that short period of time. But visitors are allowed, and the dorms are pretty secure, so it's not like people can walk in and out. There's card key access to the dorms and things like that, so it's not just a wide open space.
Okay, I'll take note that when I want to visit her, I'll have to make sure I check in advance. Look, in addition to dealing with COVID, and it sounds like you have a robust plan in place, but this year you're also having to deal with monkeypox as a new issue. What is your plan to educate students, minimize any transmission in the community, and support students who become infected?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. We've got a website up as you would expect, and we can get that link to you. What we've been doing is kind of a connected response with our campus community partners, particularly with special student groups, certain campus groups, and really trying to get the messaging right. Not only just the capability of the support and the medical support and the vaccination, but really, helping affirm and support our students and those groups most affected. We do have vaccines. So right now, we've got a supply of vaccines, and we've been reaching out. We've been vaccinating folks. We've been reaching out, and right now they're reserved for close contacts, as defined by the California Department of Public Health, or individuals at high epidemiologic risk. That guideline will start to expand as we get more vaccines, but right now that's where we're at.
All right.
Pretty soon, hopefully next week, they'll have the ability to book their own vaccine appointments. So it will be a very seamless, touchless process.
All right, well, do keep us posted. Dr. Guy Nicolette, the Assistant Vice Chancellor for University Health Services for UC Berkeley. Thank you so much. Great seeing you.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, coming up next, San Francisco is a vibe with Gen Z. We'll dig into new research showing why the city is so popular with the younger generation. Stay with us. Getting Answers. We'll be right back.
In commercial break.
San Francisco has its challenges, from crime to homelessness to high rent. There are a lot of issues to unpack. But new research shows one group is criticizing the city a lot less and praising it a lot more. We're talking about Generation Z. Our media partners at the SF Standard have published a new study on this. It explains why residents born between 1997 and 2012, so people between 10 and 25 years old, love the city by the bay. Joining us live now to talk about this is the Standard's data editor, Anna Tong. Hi, Anna. Nice to have you on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so the headline is Gen Z loves San Francisco. How do you figure this? What numbers are we looking at here?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of studies on this. So in our own internal poll that we conducted a few months ago, Gen Z was the happiest segment of folks that were in SF. And then today, Glassdoor, which is the super popular site where employees can rate their employers, they just released a study internally where they found that SF was the biggest, the city with the most happy Gen Zers of large cities.
All large cities in America, they looked at, the largest number of happy Gen Zers. So what is it about the city? What do they love about it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with the types of jobs that are available in San Francisco. So if you're a Gen Zer, you're under 25, so you're likely to have an entry-level job. And a lot of the jobs in SF are tech jobs. And so what that means is tech companies are really focused on employee happiness. And unlike New York or maybe LA, where you'd be someone's assistant or you'd be working in finance, those jobs, you might have to work a lot longer, and so you'd be unhappier. And then secondly, Gen Zers, they're loving just the vibe of San Francisco. So you can be outside all the time and you can do activities that are cheaper. So instead of having to go to an expensive bar in New York, you can hang out in the park with your friends in San Francisco and it's totally free. And also, it's really expensive to live in San Francisco, but Gen Zers don't mind that. They've been cooped up at home in the suburbs with their parents for a couple years. So they want to, live with 10 other people in, dorm-like quarters. They actually want that.
Interesting. So some of the things that will make older people, maybe, I don't know, well, certainly boomers, but also like Gen X or millennials cringe, Gen Z actually, they don't mind it, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Okay. We actually have some pictures of happy Gen Zers, I think, that you sent us as part of your article here. And they do look like they're enjoying the city. I think this is where you talk about the vibe part, right? Because I'm seeing a lot of active-looking young people enjoying the great outdoors with their puppies.
Exactly.
All right, so what else about the San Francisco lifestyle is appealing to this group in the survey?
So apart from the jobs, they're really happy with their jobs, and they really like that SF is a very progressive city. So Gen Zers value things like diversity. They value social justice initiatives, and so a lot of the companies here are really into that. So that appeals to a lot of Gen Zers. They love the weather, they love the openness, the green spaces, in combination with the dense urban city life, so they can really easily meet other young people and hang out.
Now we know why they love it, but why is this such welcome news for the city, that this demographic group is so into the city?
Yeah, I think it's really, SF, as we all know, has a kind of a PR problem right now. It's all over national, international news, our issues with homelessness, with crime, the conditions of the streets, whatever. So I think it's really good news that young people, and young people are the trendsetters, are really wanting to come to SF and are really embracing the SF lifestyle.
Okay, in those same surveys, I'm not sure if it's your internal or the Glassdoor ones, were there hints, suggestions, or things that might be simple changes that can be made to appeal to the other generations too, who may be less happy?
That's a really good question. I didn't see that, but I think, stuff like building more housing is a really common one. People that are older don't tend to want to live with 10 other roommates. So if you can bring down the cost of housing so people can live here more affordably, that would be really important. And then obviously, increasing making the streets cleaner, making it a more walkable city, better public transit, that kind of thing.
All right, interesting. Well, really appreciate this conversation. We have about 20 seconds left, so real quickly, I just want to ask you, I'm sure you have some Gen Zers working at the Standard. Do they tend to say the same things?
They totally do. They are loving San Francisco. They're out with their friends all the time in the parks. They think San Francisco is a clean place to live. They don't have like the same complaints that some older people do.
So interesting.
Yeah, they love
Anna,
coming into the office. Yep.
I just want to let our viewers know this was not a segment brought to you by the Chamber of Commerce. You guys did the polls, and that was the finding, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. By the way, folks, you can check out more of the San Francisco Standard's other original reporting on sfstandard.com. ABC7 will continue to bring you more segments featuring their city-focused journalism. Reminder, you can get our live newscast, breaking news, weather, and more with our ABC7 Bay Area streaming TV app. Search ABC7 Bay Area and download it wherever you stream. Be right back.
In commercial break. Seven, 6, 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thanks for joining us on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every weekday at 3 on air and on live stream answering your questions. World News Tonight with David Muir is next. Bye-bye.